From haunted islands to cursed villages, we're exploring real-life horror stories behind these forbidden destinations. First up, let's travel to Mexico and the infamous Island of the Dolls, or Isla de las Muñecas. This small island is home to hundreds of decrepit dolls hanging from trees and scattered throughout the island since 1950. There is literally no electricity there or even running water. Concrete constructions are forbidden as well, and the only buildings and shops are actually made from wood. The story goes that the island's former caretaker, Don Julian Santana Barrera, found a doll in the canal and began to collect more, believing that they helped to ward off evil spirits. He claims to have discovered the floating body of a girl in the surrounding waters, and after finding the body, Barrera is said to have found a doll floating nearby, which he believed had belonged to her. To calm the girl's spirit, Barrera started hanging dolls from the trees on his island, believing this would actually provide her with some companionship. As time went on, he soon thought to himself that one doll hanging simply was not enough, and so for the next 50 years he would scrounge dolls from the trash and from the canals and hang them from the island's many trees and walls. Some of the dolls he would actually hang whole, others in various states of disrepair, so either, headless or feetless, legless, you get the point. Now, over time, as the legends spread, Barrera continued to collect even more discarded dolls from trash and traded goods in order to acquire more, leading to the island becoming densely populated with dolls. These actions don't really sound like the actions of a person who, has a good grip on reality, and that's why there's been so many doubts from people surrounding this legend. While the story is widely believed, some question whether the, drowned girl actually existed or if it was just a figment of Barrera's imagination. Even his own family didn't believe that he ever found a girl, although, they also didn't specify if they do think, what happened or not. So it's all very mysterious. Now, Don devoted his whole life to her, and the real horror begins when you learn that Barrera was actually found unalived on the island in 2001. Discovered, yep, you guessed it, drowned in the canal, in the exact same place he said he's seen the girl. Now, many believe that he was driven mad by the isolation and the eerie atmosphere of the island. In response to his passing, tourists actually began flocking to the island in order to pay their tribute at the time. Now, one person named Jose Perez, who is said to have visited the island all the way from Texas one year, stated that, it feels very calm there, but at night it would be pretty spooky. Just, all these dolls kind of hanging around looking right at you. Today, the island is completely off limits to visitors due to its remote location and the risk of disease from the stagnant water. And while yes, technically you can visit the island, if you try to, good luck though, because, most boat operators will refuse to actually take you there due to either superstition or their concerns about the spooky reputation the island holds.
Number 3. Aokigahara Forest. Aokigahara Forest is often known as the Sea of Trees. It's a hauntingly beautiful park in Japan that carries a dark reputation. Hundreds of people over the years have come to Aokigahara to take their own life, leading to its infamous and dark distinction. Spiritualists and paranormal investigators in Japan believe that because there have been so many tragic deaths that happened in Aokigahara, the forest itself is literally growing denser, and the paranormal activity and dark energy inside as well. This seemingly serene forest has been host to all kind of dark rumors, with some stating that the forest is hallowed ground, haunted by demonic spirits for years. Others claim that the forest drives people to madness due to high deposits of iron, which cause compasses to malfunction, meaning travelers would get hopelessly lost. Some visitors to Aokigahara Forest report hearing screams, wallowing, or crying while walking through the trees. There's no doubt that there's probably a very dark feeling walking through these trees, knowing everything that's ever transpired there. As well, there's something about the knotted mess of all the branches and bark that seems sort of surreal, not quite of this earth, but maybe that's just the legends doing the work for me. Japanese authorities have been doing their best to try and reclaim the forest's haunted reputation, putting up signposts all over to try and deter anyone who would take their own life to instead reach out, call for authorities, and they're no longer publicizing any cases of this happening, hoping to one day salvage the tormented reputation of an otherwise serene spot. Number 2. Poveglia. I've talked about Poveglia on this channel before, and I almost kind of can't resist bringing it up again because I just find it so fascinating. Describing Poveglia sounds like Italy was intentionally trying to make the setting to a horror movie. It's just off the coast of Venice. Initially, the island served as a quarantine zone for those suffering from the plague. Infected were shipped off to Poveglia to wait out their final days. The trouble was, a lot of the people who would end up getting sent to Poveglia weren't even sick at all, showing minor to no symptoms at all. However, that probably changed pretty quickly once they were sent to a quarantine zone of exclusively sick people. It's said that the ground on Poveglia is so hallowed that there's more ash from human remains than there is soil on the island. Eventually, in 1922, Poveglia underwent a bit of a rebranding, since centuries of being known as the quarantine zone was hurting its image and its tourist economy, and it rebranded as an island home to a mental hospital. Now, of course, this mental hospital was home to doctors who performed sick experiments on their patients, often with little to no care for the patient's well-being. Chisels, drills, lobotomies without any form of anesthetic or proper treatment, all these fun things. It's said that the lead doctor at the facility was eventually so overcome with guilt over what he had done and haunted by the screams and spirits of his patients and victims that he would eventually throw himself off of the tower on the center of the island. Now, to deter all you would-be ghost hunters and paranormal enthusiasts out there who think Poveglia is sounding like the holy grail of haunted spots, I should warn you that you are probably not going to get in there, as it is extremely forbidden to enter, as in it's illegal. It's punishable to the fullest extent of the law and is considered a criminal act to trespass onto Poveglia. But a better question is, why would you even want to? Some spirits are better left unbothered. At the #1 spot is Pripyat, the town outside of Chernobyl, the famed nuclear reactor. 50,000 people used to live here, and now it's a ghost town. Sorry, couldn't resist. It's difficult to summarize just exactly what happened in Chernobyl in under a 2-minute time frame, but you know, we can gloss over some of the big details for you. An overload at a nearby reactor caused a nuclear meltdown that ended up causing one of the worst ecological disasters in human history. A massive chain of unfortunate events had to all happen for the incident to play out the way it did, and unfortunately that's exactly how it went. It's a fascinating case, and there are tons and tons of documents and things to read about it, and you should after this video because it's fascinating. 50,000 people had to be evacuated basically overnight, and Pripyat turned into a ghost town, now standing as a harrowing monument to the dangers of unchecked nuclear power. Photos from inside Pripyat almost don't look real. They look like something out of a post-apocalyptic movie, and I guess that kind of makes sense because it is post-apocalyptic when you think about it. Unlike a lot of the others on this list, Pripyat doesn't need any supernatural ghost stories to elicit a sense of fear. It's haunted, definitely, but more so by radiation and unease than anything else. Mutated animals and vegetation, abandoned Ferris wheels, and an unmissable sense of dread in the air certainly paint a picture of one of the Earth's darkest spots. To some, Pripyat is the ultimate dark tourist destination, infamous and wholly unique. There's actually a whole subculture around venturing into the zone for recreation, a group of people who call themselves stalkers after the 1972 film and not the first-person shooter RPG series set in Chernobyl. These people illegally trespass into the surrounding areas of Chernobyl for the ultimate urban exploration thrill. Now, there are guided tours as well of Chernobyl's surrounding areas for those who are less familiar with the dangers of the zone, but want to get up and close and personal nonetheless. Number 5. Leap Castle. For 700 years, Leap Castle has proudly stood in Ireland, boasting a rather infamous reputation as the most haunted castle in the world, which I feel is a title it must have really fought hard for. I mean, Dracula had a castle, that's gotta be the most haunted castle. The castle was first built in the 13th century, home to the O'Bannon clan, but it would be adopted by the ruling O'Carroll clan, who seized control of it completely by the 15th century. From here, ownership would pass from father to son, but was punctuated by blood. Rival clans, wars, and even family member assassinations were all par for the course of Leap Castle's bloodied history. A grim oubliette where prisoners would be pushed from a window, landing into a pit of spikes, really completed the castle. After centuries of battles and brawls over the castle, it would eventually be burned in 1922 during the Irish Civil War, where it was then abandoned. Now, it goes without saying that a castle that saw as much bloodshed as this is home to a bevy of trapped spirits. The most present one is the Bloody Chapel spirit. Legend has it that one of the O'Carroll children had his own brother assassinated to gain power. His brother, a member of the clergy, is said to restlessly wander the burnt-out chapel. Visitors report seeing beams of light, the smell of burnt rubber, and the shadow of a priest in the stairwell. There's reports of a spirit of a young girl named Emily, who fell from the rampart in the 16th century and tragically lost her life. There's stories of people seeing the ghost of a young girl walking atop the battlements, dragging a misshapen leg as she walks. Today, you can try to visit the Leap Castle if you're feeling daring enough to contact the owner Sean Ryan, who does offer private tours. It'll be you, him, and all the spirits the castle has to offer. And hey, if you're looking for a vacation to a haunted spot but you don't want to leave your room, why not subscribe to Top 5 Scary? We got more haunted sites than you could visit in a lifetime, and we're just a click away. Moving on. Number 4. Separate prison. Going to prison probably sucks. I've never been, but I have heard bad things. A regular prison is pretty bad enough without the wardens getting too creative with their punishments, and then there's prisons like Australia's infamous separate prisons, where it seems like they were trying to set a world record for cruelty. Built in 1833, it was going to serve as a home for some of England's toughest crooks who had to be shipped all the way down under. A home for the toughest criminals needed to be pretty tough, right? Well, unfortunately, it was. Just in the psychological sense, not physical. Separate prison was inspired by the philosophical concept of the panopticon, a template for a prison where all prisoners would be seen under one watchtower. Inmates were to only ever be referred to by the numbers sewn on their uniforms, and were to wear black hoods at all times they weren't in their cells to help them better reflect on their crimes. I'm sure that went over swimmingly with a bunch of violent criminals. Well, it didn't. It mostly led to inmates going mad or offing each other in the hopes that capital punishment was preferable to being imprisoned there, which is a sign that your system is working. Look, it probably goes without saying that this is a haunted prison now, right? I mean, there's over 1,000 bodies buried in unmarked graves on an island that held a prison where everyone had to wear dark hoods. There's no way it's not haunted. Well, it's on this list, so it is. The prison is now owned by Australia's Parks and Wildlife Services, who offer ghost tours of the grounds, where visitors report all sorts of hauntings. Screams, wailings can be heard wandering through the halls, rocking chairs moving by themselves during the night. There's an option on the prison's website to take a tour with just a lantern to guide you, if you're feeling particularly brave.
Number 3 on this list is Snake Island. So we had Monkey Island, now this is Snake Island. Just the name Snake Island sounds scary as hell. Sounds like something that you'd hear about in a Scooby-Doo novel, let alone in real life. AZ Animals says, Ilha da Quimera Grande is home to Bothrops insularis. It's also known as the Golden Lancehead Viper. This snake is a relative of the mainland's deadliest snake, the fer de lance. This snake is very noteworthy because it exists only on Snake Island. There's no other place on Earth that you can find this animal. The prevailing theory is that this species became trapped on the island after the last ice age ended over 11,000 years ago. Rising seawater immersed the land, connecting Snake Island to the mainland. The golden lancehead is very distinct. The snake has a light yellow and light brown color, especially on its underside. Also, this snake shares the same unique head as the fer de lance, a long head with a point at the nose that resembles a lance's blade. The golden lancehead snake is one of the most venomous snakes in South America. The mortality rate for people that get anti-venom is believed to be up to 3%, and that number skyrockets if you don't get treatment. Even if the individual does not die, they will suffer severe damage to their body. The venom of a golden lancehead is hemotoxic. That means it attacks red blood cells and can cause all sorts of different physical problems. If a golden lancehead bites you, you will suffer from pain, internal bleeding, necrosis of muscle tissue, possible hemorrhages in the brain, and way too many other symptoms. There's a very famous story associated with this island where a lighthouse keeper and his family went here, and when people went to go check up on them a bit later, they were all dead from snake bites. Then a few other people tried to go here and they all died from snake bites too. Apparently this island is so dense with snakes that wherever you go, you have a high chance of getting bit. For people's safety, they obviously had to shut it down to the public. Number 2 on this list is Mezhgorye. This banned location is in Russia, and if you go here, you are probably never coming back out again. The travel says, being the largest country in the world, Russia is certainly full of surprises. Has a lot of mysterious sites, ghost towns, and other special places. Like, for example, Mezhgorye in the Republic of Bashkortostan. It's a closed town hidden somewhere in the southern Ural Mountains. To keep off anyone who wants to penetrate into the town or even come close to it, it's encircled by 2 battalions. It's not 100% clear what this area is and why it's surrounded, but it's got a lot of secrecy. According to most believable reports, it's a nuclear missile site that allegedly has automatic missiles that can be controlled remotely. But since government officials don't comment anything on it, we still can't be sure what's going on there. Man, you already know that if you go anywhere close to this secret Russian base, that it is guaranteed to be the last thing you do. Also, people are just guessing it's nukes, but it honestly could be something way worse than that too. Like, this could totally be some evil human crossbreeding mutation lab or something like that. Or a place where they're just developing like super secret advanced weaponry that's just too crazy to comprehend. Whatever they are truly doing here, none of us will ever be allowed to find out because it is thoroughly off limits. And number 1 on this list is Poveglia. Poveglia is an island in Italy that has seen its fair share of death and tragedy. Mental Floss says Poveglia in Italy is deserted today, but it's been said that over the years 160,000 people have lived and died there. The Venetian island became a quarantine station in 1793, and for 2 decades it was a place for potential victims of the bubonic plague. So many people died there that up to 50% of the island's soil is said to contain human remains. The quarantine station closed in 1814, but Poveglia's dark history didn't end there. A mental hospital opened at the site in the 1920s, and it quickly developed a reputation for its inhumane treatment of patients. The hospital closed after a few decades, and today the overgrown island is largely closed off to visitors except for the occasional ghost hunters. Think about how much death has happened here. All of that death is what has led people to the conclusion that this place, it's haunted. And not just a little bit haunted, like I am talking deeply haunted. I mean, half the time that you take a step, you're gonna be walking over someone's dead body. This is just bound to be a spot of paranormal activity. The government has rightfully shut this place down. Unless you're a professional ghost hunter, you should not be visiting Poveglia. Number 5 on this list is Heard Island. Heard Island is actually part of Australia, even though it is super far away from Australia. The travel says one of the most remote territories in the world, Heard Island is considered an Australian territory even though it's located between Madagascar and Antarctica. It's home to a wide range of animals such as seals, penguins, and marine birds, as well as more than 40 glaciers. There were a few reasons for closing the island to the public. First, in 2000, researchers noticed a huge lava flow coming from the island's massive volcano called Mawson's Peak. Second, Heard Island is known for its poor weather conditions. And third, it's too remote to be safe. Judge it by yourself, it's located in a minimum 2-week sail to the closest major landmass. So yeah, there are obviously tons of reasons not to go to this place and very few reasons to actually go. In the few reasons to actually go, it would be pretty cool to go to a place that's totally remote like this. There'd be a lot of penguins and seals and stuff, and for about a solid half hour you would think it's pretty cool. After that half hour though, I don't think that you'd be about it. The weather is horrible here and it's going to be extremely cold. So you could easily get swept up in a bad storm that would make it impossible to leave the island. This is also one of the better case scenarios because alternatively you could have the volcano erupt. On the bright side, you wouldn't be cold anymore if that happened, but you'd also be very dead. I also looked at some pictures of this place online, and honestly guys, there really isn't that much to it. Like, if the place was like picturesque and there was beautiful stuff here, then I could see an argument for it, but that's actually just not the case. Like, it's kind of just a small plot of land in the middle of nowhere. And even by looking at the photos, I felt like I was getting cold. The island is banned for a reason, so stay away, guys. Number 4 on this list is Monkey Island. As far as islands packed with animals, you're going to see that this isn't actually the scariest one on the list, but still, it's pretty dangerous. The travel says a colony of approximately 4,000 rhesus monkeys live on Morgan Island, South Carolina, due to which it was nicknamed as Monkey Island. But despite what you might think, the population of primates isn't native to the island. They were relocated there from Puerto Rico due to the spreading of herpes virus B infection. Before it happened, the island was uninhabited. These days, people are prohibited by law to visit the island for their own safety as well as the safety of the monkeys. Only a handful of researchers from the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases can go there. So herpes virus B is very dangerous, guys. A lot of people think herpes and think of cold sores and, well, not a major deal, but herpes virus B, that is a very rare infection that can lead to permanent brain damage or death if you don't seek doctor's help immediately. So basically, this island is filled with a bunch of monkeys who, by themselves, could be very dangerous because they could attack us at any time, but also a lot of these monkeys happen to carry a very dangerous infection. So for good reason, the government has completely banned people from going. If you care about your health and safety, you should listen to them.
Number 3, the USS Salem. Planes, trains, and automobiles. Well, almost. A big boat. The USS Salem, a heavy cruiser built for World War II in 1945, was originally built for action. Its bold, aggressive architecture was one of the last, as it was more of a bluff to its opponents than actually a hero of war. In May 1949, War Departments handed the Salem's helm to Captain J.C. Daniel himself. The ship was built and updated with what was then the latest military tech and weapons, and it was meant to strike fear in whomever or whatever was in her way. Although the ship wasn't used in any action during World War II, it acted as a flagship, training operation, and main purpose as a threat to the naval enemy. It wasn't until the USS Salem had responded to the 1953 Ionian earthquake, or also known as the Great Kefalonia earthquake, as it hit the southern Ionian islands of Greece on August 12th, devastating the entire area. The USS Salem landed on Greek shores and acted as an improvised hospital and morgue, giving it its famous name, the Sea Witch. The ship was decommissioned shortly after its rescue and lays in Boston's harbor as a tourist attraction from all of its dark history. Some of the paranormal activities that arise on the ship include the Burning Man, who smells of rank death and can be seen in the mess hall where the bodies have been stored. Another famous apparition on the ship is the Ghost Girls, who lurk the halls of the ship. Little ghostly figures can be seen and felt on the legs of tour goers. Some people claim that the ship is even home to hellhounds, an aggressive pack of ghostly creatures that roam the ship growling and scratching at closed doors. Yeah, the next time my dog scratches at my door, she's going up for adoption, I'm sorry. Number 2, the Lizzie Borden house. This quaint bed and breakfast located at 230 2nd Street is home to one of America's most haunted and mysterious homes. The Lizzie Borden house gets its haunt from an unsolved murder of Lizzie Borden in 1892. One of the most infamous true crime figures known for her murdering of her father and stepmother with several blows to the head with a hatchet. Oof, ouch. Although acquitted, the killings remain unsolved to this day. This case earned notoriety and much that the popular local children's rhyme had been linked to this death. Lizzie Borden took an axe and gave her mother 40 whacks. When she saw what she had done, she gave her father 41. That is horrible. On August 4th, 1892, Lizzie's stepmother of 27 was struck 19 times while her father Andrew was hit 11. Although Lizzie Borden was acquitted and found not guilty, the dark history draws in crowds every night for its nightly tour of the premises. The Lizzie Borden room, the infamous room where all of the murders took place, is the most requested and most popular for paranormal overnighters. And not only can you enjoy a lovely inclusive breakfast to yourself, but the nightly house tour, ghost tour, and ghost hunt attracts fans of horror every night of the year. Yeah, that's terrifying. And there's a jingle to it. I don't like that at all. And coming in at number 1, the Salem Witch Trials. We can't talk about haunted places in Massachusetts if we're not going to bring up the witch trials. And I'm not talking about Sabrina the Teenage Witches. or anything of cute of that nature, these famously documented witch trials need no introduction, and unfortunately lays way to one of the most horrific events based in truth. The site of mass hysteria and hangings of supposed witches took place here and occurred in colonial Massachusetts between 1692 and 1693. More than 200 people were accused of practicing witchcraft, or better known back then as the devil's magic, and 20 were ultimately executed. Eventually, the colony admitted the trials were a mistake and compensated the families of those convicted. Okay, yeah, sorry. I just thought when you sneezed, you didn't say bless you, so I already don't like you, so I figured you were a witch. I'm really sorry. Since then, the story of the trials has become famous in paranoia and injustice, and it continues to baffle researchers to this day. We all know the famous play written by American playwright Arthur Miller in 1953, The Crucible, depicting the mass hysteria and drama during these trials. This was the perfect time if you didn't like someone that a strategic and untimely sinister accusation led to the demise of thy neighbor. I saw Sarah Good with the devil. I saw Goody Osborne with the devil. Who else don't I like? I saw Bridget Bishop with the devil. Abigail. End of Act 1. Since the start of the trials and hysteria in North America, other European countries shortly followed with their own mass witch hunts, resulting in somewhere between 40,000 and 60,000 tried and executed for witchcraft. That's a lot of broomsticks. The Salem witch trials of Salem, Massachusetts, still one of the world's biggest hotspots for mystery and paranormal story. And coming in at number 5, we have the Houghton Mansion. Built in the 1890s in North Adams, Massachusetts, for the mayor himself, Albert Charles Houghton. This neoclassical revival-style mansion sits on 172 Church Street. A family man, Albert was the president of Arnold Print Works, a prominent textile factory in North Adams. His wife, Cordelia, daughter Mary, and himself had owned and lived on the property right up until the fatal car accident which took the lives of the family in 1914. On an early summer morning, Albert and his family, accompanied by another family, Dr. and Mrs. Dutton and their daughter, and of course the family chauffeur himself, Mr. Witters, had decided to head out into the countryside for a leisurely drive. A drive that ultimately took their lives. Unfortunately, for everyone on that August 1st morning, after a steep turn, the car lost control and proceeded to screech off the road, resulting in a rolling fatal wreck. All the women in this tragedy losing their lives, with the men barely surviving from the multitude of injuries. On August 11th, just 10 days after the accident, without his wife and daughter, Albert mysteriously died in the home from what doctors think was a broken heart. It is said that 3 ghosts haunt the Houghton Mansion, including Albert himself, Albert's daughter Mary, and the driver, Mr. Witters. The mansion remained with the Houghton family until 1926, when Albert's daughter Florence and her husband sold the building to the Freemasons. This is when the spookiness really started happening. Through its multitude of use throughout the years, additions to this historic site were added on by the Masons, using it for ritual and spiritual purposes, making this story even weirder. Over the years, there have been countless paranormal witnesses claiming that the ghosts roaming the halls of the basement, Mr. Witters himself, guilt-ridden with the responsibility of the crash, and Mr. Witters took his own life shortly after returning home with injuries, and residents that have stayed at the site have claimed that the manly figure aimlessly rummaging through the basement is the driver himself. Among these claims have another spirit lurking in Mary's bedroom. It is said that overnighters have witnessed multiple bright lights and auras flying around the bedroom in the middle of the night. I wouldn't even step foot into this house, let alone set up camp and spend the night. No way. The Houghton Mansion remains a tourist attraction and hotspot for paranormal goers worldwide, and to this day is one of the most haunted and mysterious sites in all of Massachusetts. Number 4. The Hoosac Tunnel. The Hoosac Tunnel, from the Algonquin word place of stones and the Mohawk word forbidden, is a 4.75-mile active railroad tunnel in western Massachusetts that passes through the Hoosac Range, an extension of Vermont's Green Mountains, and runs from Deerfield River in the town of Florida to the city of North Adams. The construction began in 1815 and ending in 1875 with a budget of $2 million, at the time the largest tunnel ever constructed, and it was later the result of taking lives of over 200 men during its construction entirety, earning it the nickname from locals, the Bloody Pit. This haunted, barren, 5-mile, completely enclosed stretch was subject to multiple accidents and deaths over the years, giving the tunnel its haunting history and reputation of being cursed itself. With the word forbidden, did the Mohawks know something that the workers didn't? Essentially, this cold, underground, pitch-black hole became one of America's strangest grave sites, resulting in everything from mysterious gas leaks, dynamite explosions, roofs collapsing, and even mechanic failures resulting in a mass flood. For the past decades, there have been numerous paranormal activity witnesses who have documented strange events from police officers to the freight conductors themselves. Some of the reports over the last 100 years included numerous farmers and wagons ending up in different areas of the railroad, missing hours of time. The farmers had claimed that when spending time around the railroad and its tracks, that memory and confusion would always set in. Some residents have claimed that they have even been chased out of the tunnel by an unexpected freight train chugging along aggressively through the tunnel like a bat out of hell, and then vanishing. Numerous ghostly figures resembling workers roam the dark tunnel, and if that isn't scary enough, some people, including hearing the echoes and screams of even the workers who were buried alive under the rock, still holding their tools, or even seeing ghostly figures in pumping chambers where numerous men tirelessly making rafts not to drown. The Hoosac tunnel remains one of the most visited and haunted places, marking it just one of the sites you'll probably never find me at. Just in 2020, the tunnel was yet again subject to a mysterious collapse resulting in months of repair. Yeah, I say stop fixing it and just let it be.
Number 3. Bhangar Fort, India. This 17th century fortress has a reputation for being the most haunted place in India, with people refusing to build homes near the fort for fear of falling under its curse. Despite this reputation, there is some debate as to why it is haunted, with two very different stories being told. In the first story, a king named Madho Singh wanted to build the fort but needed the permission of an ascetic monk who lived on the nearby land. The monk granted him permission to build the fort, but warned him that the fort's shadow must never fall upon the monk's home. Madho agreed to these terms and built the fort to the specifications. However, one of his successors added to the fortifications vertically, causing the fort's shadow to engulf the forbidden home, causing the fort to fall to ruin and become haunted. Another version of the tale is that an evil sorcerer fell in love with a beautiful princess named Ratnavati. She rebuffed his advances, so he bewitched a cosmetic that she was going to use that would force her to fall in love with him. She found out about this scheme and poured the cosmetic onto a large boulder, which then crushed the sorcerer. With his dying breath, the sorcerer cursed the fort so that no one would ever be able to live there in peace. The fort is open to the public during the day, but it is forbidden to set foot on the property at night, as that is when the hauntings occur, with several people who have tried to disprove the ghost by staying overnight, going missing, or coming out catatonic. Number 2. The Paris Catacombs. When you consider how many locations like old houses or abandoned mental institutions have a reputation for being haunted due to the discovery of just a few bodies, it comes as no surprise that many of the world's catacombs have apparently been discovered to be haunted by specters of the past. Take for example the Paris Catacombs. Built as a mass grave in the 18th century in order to deal with the overflowing of local cemeteries, the Paris Catacombs hold the remains of millions of Parisians. A few years after being established, Louis-Étienne Héricard decided to make the catacombs a work of art by arranging the bones into elaborate displays. An inscription in the catacombs even reads, "Arrête, c'est ici l'Empire de la Mort," which translates to "Stop, this is the Empire of the Dead." Although a small section of the catacombs are available for visitors to peruse, the vast majority of the seemingly endless tunnels are banned for tourists to visit. In the years since they were constructed, there have been several reports of ghosts wandering the halls of the labyrinth-like grave, searching for a way out. As if that weren't bad enough, rumor has it that if you come into the catacombs at night, you will hear the whispers of all the spirits of the catacombs, trying to convince you to venture deeper and deeper into the catacombs until you become lost and unable to find your way out. Another often reported ghost is that of Philibert Asper, who was a doorman at the Val-de-Grâce hospital, who made his way into the catacombs in late 1793 when he was sent to fetch liquor from a cellar, with only the light of a candle to find his way out. He soon became lost and confused. It is also theorized that he was quite drunk at the time. His candle eventually went out and it became pitch black. He was missing for 11 years before his remains were found and identified due to the hospital keys and the bottle of liquor in his hand. He was interred in the catacombs at the exact location where he was found. In the years since, urban explorers calling themselves cataphiles have reported seeing the spirit of Asper wandering the halls of the catacombs, with his candle on the anniversary of him going missing. The cataphiles are known for paying their respects at his grave, and they have named his spirit the Protector of the cataphiles. Number 1. Poveglia Island, Italy. In the lagoon between Venice and Lido, you will find the small island known as Poveglia. It was first inhabited in the year 421, when mainlanders relocated to the island to escape barbarian invaders. Due to its small size, the island was easily defensible, and frankly not worth the trouble for invaders to bother attacking. The small community stayed on the island for centuries, enjoying their independence from taxes and laws of the mainland, but their population eventually dwindled, leaving the island uninhabited. This changed in the year 1348, when the bubonic plague was ravaging Venice and the surrounding towns. Poveglia became a quarantine island, with symptomatic Italians being banished there to die. The center of the island had a giant pyre, where tens of thousands of plague victims' bodies were burnt to prevent the spread of the disease. When the plague returned in the year 1630, the island became a quarantine colony, once again, with even more bodies being burnt in the town square. Naturally, the location developed a reputation for being haunted by the tens of thousands of displaced and abandoned plague victims, but the island's creepy history was far from over. Aside from a brief period where Napoleon used the island to store gunpowder, relying on the ghost stories of the place to keep unwanted visitors away, the island remained largely uninhabited until an insane asylum was built on the island in the late 1800s. It was a brutal hospital that was poorly constructed and used more to exile the patients from society than to help rehabilitate them. One of the doctors working there in the 30s conducted strange and cruel experiments on the patients for years, before going mad himself and flinging himself from the bell tower. Though this bell tower was removed years ago, people still claim to hear the sound of the bells emanating from the island. The hospital became an old folks' home briefly, but that closed in 1975, leaving the island completely abandoned. A construction crew tried to restore the hospital, but suddenly stopped, refusing to return to the island due to how intensely haunted the island has become. The government has banned anyone from visiting the island, but its reputation has made it an infamous and terrifying location. Number 5. North Brother Island, New York. The North Brother Island is one of two small islands located in the East River of New York City. The island remained uninhabited until 1885, with the only trace of humanity being a small lighthouse that was erected in 1869. The island began seeing more use in 1885 when the Riverside Smallpox Hospital moved from Roosevelt Island to North Brother, when their mission expanded to treating and isolating victims of other quarantinable diseases such as typhoid, tuberculosis, and especially polio. In 1904, a steamship called the General Slocum was set ablaze, and over 1,000 people perished, either from the fire or from drowning while trying to escape, and ended up washing ashore on the island. Of course, many people have reported seeing a ghostly steamship in the years since, and sightings of the spectral victims of the fire are reported from afar, with them wandering the beach of the island, seemingly lost and in pain. One of the most famous residents at the hospital was Mary Mallon, otherwise known as Typhoid Mary, who was confined on the island for 20 years until her death in 1938, after being declared a public health menace for infecting between 51 and 122 people while working as a cook. As public health measures like vaccines began to be adopted in the 30s and 40s, the need for a quarantine hospital lessened to the point where the hospital was closed. It was converted into housing for war veterans who were going to school in the city following World War II, before being converted into a rehabilitation facility for young people suffering from substance abuse issues. But it was closed in 1963 due to the cost of upkeep and the widespread corruption of the staff. In the years since, it was considered for a variety of purposes, including housing for the homeless and an extension of the jail at Rikers Island, but the danger of the unmarked manholes and the advanced dilapidation of the buildings, which are mostly collapsed and overrun by poison ivy, resulted in such ideas being abandoned. It was eventually decided that the site would serve as a bird sanctuary for herons and other wading shorebirds. Although many of the original 25 buildings are still standing in some shape or form, it has been made off limits to the public and is only available for supervised visits for those intending to go ashore for, quote, compelling academic and scientific purposes. With its history of confinement and death, perhaps it is for the best that this site has been deemed unfit for public visitation, although the history of the island is indeed compelling. Number 4. Boblo Island Amusement Park, Ontario. North America has no shortage of amusement parks for families and thrill seekers alike to visit. The Canadian province of Ontario has several to choose from, including Canada's Wonderland, Great Wolf Lodge, and Splashdown Niagara. One theme park that you won't be able to buy a ticket for, however, is the Boblo Island Amusement Park, located on the island of Bois Blanc, just above the mouth of the Detroit River. The park was opened in 1898 and used a ferry system to service guests from Ontario and Detroit and bring them to the island, where they had a variety of attractions to keep them occupied and having fun. Some of these included the Falling Star, a log flume, a theater, a sky tower, Ferris wheel, a zoo, a carousel, and a dance hall, financed by Henry Ford. It also had 3 roller coasters, the Screamer, the Nightmare, and the Sky Streak. It also had Boblo's Scooter boats, which were essentially aquatic bumper cars. The park operated for many years before eventually closing down for financial reasons in late 1993. There are still ferries that operate in order to get island residents on and off the island, but the now abandoned amusement park has been declared off limits by the property owners. Of course, the dilapidated carousel building, dance pavilion, and sky tower have since proven to be too appealing for urban explorers to keep away from, and the eerie, overgrown site still sees a variety of visitors. Like any good amusement park, it of course has a reputation for being haunted by a variety of ghosts. My personal favorite of the ghost stories is the story of Smiley the Magician. Back when the theater still operated and showed a variety of different performers, one of the most consistently booked performers of the 30s and 40s was a magician named Smiley Smilovich. Smiley was an old-school magician who had trained with Houdini in the late 20s and was known for his seemingly death-defying tricks. One of his most famous tricks was a metamorphosis trick, where he would put a trunk on stage, climb into it, lock it, and then have the trunk set on fire. He would escape through a trap door, the trunk would burn away, revealing that he had escaped, and the crowd would go wild. One day he was doing this trick as usual, but when he locked himself in the trunk, he had a heart attack and died. The trunk was then set on fire, and the audience was left in terror as Smiley's body burned in front of them. Ever since then, Smiley's ghost would apparently haunt the theater, being sighted watching shows that were performed there, showing a special interest in magic shows. In the years since the park's closure, the occasional rumor of the magician being spotted has come up from the various urban explorers checking out the overgrown buildings. Would you ever be brave enough to explore Boblo Island Amusement Park? And if you did, would you be on the lookout for spectral magicians?
Number 3, Boston Common. Most common fact about the Common: one of the most haunted places in Boston. That rhymed really weird, didn't it? If you're out for a walk and feel the need to brush up on your American history, then you can be sure to either see the ladies by the trees or the Patriot men rushing the battlefront. Well, what's left behind from them at least. The Boston Common had a multi-purpose identity through the centuries. Originally as a farm, and then trading grounds for the British and American military, the Common was used as a camp during the American Revolutionary War. 20 minutes to load these old muskets and a lot of people dying. It was also used for public hangings up until 1817, most of which were from the large oaks, which were eventually all replaced with gallows in 1769. These grounds held weight during the witch trials and made a perfect open concept park that a spectacle could be enjoyed at. These people were sick. This place has seen its fair share of violence. The 350-year-old park is full of graves, ghosts, and gallows. It's almost impossible to know just how many bodies lay underneath the park, like a cesspool of unmarked graves from many different eras. Most buried here were low class, sick, or died in battle. Oh, and of course were hanged in front of the public. This place is home to many dark shadows, cold spots, and the occasional smell of gunpowder. Next time you're in Boston, swing by one of America's oldest and fullest cemeteries and see if you can see anything for yourself. Number 2, the Danvers State Hospital. The Danvers State Hospital, or also known as the Danvers State Insane Asylum, was a psychiatric hospital located in Danvers, Massachusetts. It was built in 1874 and opened in 1878 on the isolated site in rural Massachusetts, which, fun fact, the judge who preceded the Salem witch trials lived on. That's bad karma already, isn't it? Despite being included in the National Registry for Historical Places in 1984, the majority of the building was demolished in 2007. At a cost of $1.5 million at the time, the hospital originally consisted of 2 main center buildings with housing for the administration, with 4 radiating wings on each side. The outermost wards were reserved for the most hostile patients. This was a prominent location where medications were being tested by the government, and the favored lobotomy was being fleshed out. When shock therapy failed to control the population, lobotomies started, and in 1939 the population of the hospital swelled to almost over 2,400 patients. A total of 278 people died at the hospital that same year. Neurology experts often call Danvers the birthplace of the prefrontal lobotomy. Ouch. Visitors to the hospital during these years reported lobotomy patients wandering around staring blankly at nothing, unaware of who they were or what they were doing. Large budget cuts in the 60s played a major role in the progression of closing the Danvers State Hospital, and with nicknames like Hell Hill Hospital and Lunatic Asylum, the hospital began slowly closing its facilities by 1985. The original hospital wards were closed and abandoned soon after. During the 80s, reports began to filter out of the hospital about missing teenage patients. The stories of ghostly figures and shadows in the windows were thriving. Are the ghosts of the lobotomized patients still aimlessly walking the realms of this now demolished hospital? What do you think? And number 1, the Bridgewater Triangle. Just a couple miles south of Boston is one of the most interesting and bizarre places in Massachusetts. I chose this as the number 1 spot due to not only the paranormal ghostly figures that have been seen across the vast plains, but 200 miles of connected weird events. That will definitely catch our attention. It's named from the triangle shape. The paranormal events and phenomenon that occurs within these mapped lines includes as many as orbs, UFOs, Bigfoots, fairies, skinwalkers, alien hybrids, you name it, it's there. Well, possibly there. The towns of Raynham, Brockton, Norton, and Taunton are all subject to a universal head scratcher. In the 70s, there of course was a surge of UFO witnesses, at the same time several Bigfoot. Huh, that's interesting. Massachusetts just keeps getting stranger and stranger, doesn't it? Huge humanoid creatures, motherships, and landed UFOs have also been spotted and reported within this 200 square foot mile radius. Do you think this place is like a Skinwalker Ranch type of place? Maybe some motherships are trying to just reconnect with the Wi-Fi upstairs? I don't know. Whatever it is, the Bridgewater Triangle has been home to numerous documentaries and folklore and attracts spooky goers each year with its variety of paranormal activity. Number 5, Hokomock Swamp. Already sounds pretty scary in itself. Something about swamps, you know what I mean? During the 17th century, the Hokomock Swamp was used as a fortress by the Wampanoag people, the predominant band of natives in the area, against invasion by the early British settlers. It played a landscape role in King Philip's War as a strategic base of which to launch assaults with nearby English settlements. During the 18th and 19th centuries, settlers deemed the swamp to be useless, barren land, and it didn't really do much besides sit there and just kind of take up space. They attempted to drain it and convert it into a profitable farmland, however, nothing really grew. The natives of the region placed a much higher value on the swamp, however, for centuries. The first people had relied on hunting food there, riddled with fauna, and the swamp had gained an important legend and folklore among them as being a place where many things meet. They named it Hokomock, the Algonquin term meaning place where spirits dwell, and that's exactly what people say they do. Dwell there. What makes this swamp so haunted is the different purposes it was used for. A cesspool for bones of the fallen. Some places are just more susceptible to violence and death over the years, and that reputation of spirits lingering is what's so heavy and cold about this location. Much of the swamp served a dual purpose as a sacred burial ground as well. The Hokomock is occasionally referred to as the home of the Hokomock. The Wampanoag people worshipped and feared Hokomock, the chief deity of death and disease. Hokomock, composed of human souls of the dead, was known to congregate in areas like the Hokomock Swamp. Thus the term and lore stuck. Yep, just a giant mud monster swallowing souls. Charming. There are many stories and legends that have become associated with this swamp and are even connected to the number 1 on my list. It remains a place of mystery and fear and apparently good frog catching. Number 4, Lowell Cemetery. Lowell Cemetery is a cemetery located in Lowell, Massachusetts. Founded in 1841 and located on the banks of the Concord River, the cemetery is one of the oldest garden cemeteries in the country, making it a perfect place for violence and an eternity of soul searching. Many of Lowell's wealthy industrialists are buried here under lavish Victorian tombstones. Visitors have claimed that this is one of Massachusetts' most haunted cemeteries. What makes a haunted cemetery more haunted than another haunted cemetery, you know? Is there like a competition or like a quota or something? Just gotta keep the numbers up. What is it? I feel like every local claims their cemetery is the oldest and most haunted, and this brings me to our fair maiden here, the mysterious witch, Bonnie. A popular meeting place amongst the local teens at night for some scares and some screams, the statue of a woman with her arms outstretched on a rectangular tomb, her hands clutching a veil that falls down behind her body as though it were a cloak caught in the wind. Her eyes lay cold, staring at the heavens. Under her left eye, a black tear. Paranormal researchers have claimed that the statue holds more of an electromagnetic current, and strange things can be seen in front and around the statue, making it seem like it's moving from time to time. Creepy. There is local lore that if you leave a coin or ribbon on the statue, then you'll get good luck, and in return, if you steal or take the items from the statue, the haunting whispers of bad karma will follow. Although research shows that this gravesite holds no actual sinister history, the ghostly sightings surrounding it are a hotspot within the cemetery. I bet at night under the moonlight this woman could be very terrifying.
Number 3. Mausoleum of the first Qin Emperor, Qin Shi Huang. The tomb of former Emperor of China, Qin Shi Huang, is notable for many reasons. Maybe it was because in 1974, when farmers from the Shaanxi province were digging a well, they discovered hundreds upon hundreds of terracotta soldiers, complete with horses, chariots, officers, infantry, a court, I think even some bears, oh my. They discovered one of the world's greatest archaeological wonders, 2,000 terracotta soldiers in Qin Shi Huang's tomb. The tomb was built like this basically to serve as history's most impressive flex. Qin Shi Huang wanted to make it good and clear that even in death, he held more might and more power than anyone could ever imagine. You know that saying, you can't take it with you? Well, he wanted to take it with him. He wanted his own army to serve him in the afterlife. The wild part about this is we don't even know how far it goes, since it still hasn't fully been uncovered, even all these years later. Those thousands of terracotta soldiers might just be the first wave of guys. While he reigned, Qin Shi Huang wanted to make very sure that his tomb was a good approximation of his legacy, so thousands of laborers worked tirelessly for decades to create an emperor's tomb. They think that 700,000 laborers worked on this for 40 years. That's already unbelievable, but Qin Shi Huang only even lived to be 49, so good thing they got that done in time, eh? Qin Shi Huang himself is buried beneath an enormous pyramid mound that stands a good distance away from the rest of the tomb. Now here's where the haunted part starts to come in. According to historians, this central tomb contains treasures and wondrous objects he attained during his life, including a flowing river of pure mercury, which doesn't really sound like the greatest idea, but back then they thought that made you immortal. Soil testing the nearby areas does have elevated levels of mercury, so that might actually be true. No one is too eager to check though, since it sounds like Qin Shi Huang kitted this place out to keep any would-be Nathan Drakes or Lara Crofts from raiding this uncharted tomb. It's said that it's got ancient ballistas and all sorts of traps, like mechanisms that'll fire arrows at potential grave robbers, and hey, that mercury vapor probably isn't doing you any favors, so don't try to breathe that in. In any case, the Chinese government has been in no rush to explore what's down there. It's best to let the sleeping dead lie, especially when the sleeping dead has thousands of personal bodyguards, and it's probably haunted, let's be real. Number 2. Snake Island. Our next entry, Isla de Quimada Grande, is formally dubbed as Snake Island, which really should tell you right off the bat that whatever I'm about to describe is not a friendly place. Traditionally, places are only named things like Snake Island if they're like, you know, filled to bursting with snakes, or if they're home to like a snake-themed supervillain or something. I'm pretty sure the guys who fought G.I. Joe lived on Snake Island. Anyway, Snake Island is called that because by conservative estimates, there's roughly a snake for every square meter of the island, meaning there's anywhere from 4,000 golden lancehead vipers or more living there. There's more snakes than there are people, and that's because most Brazilian locals know way better than to go to an island where one of the most venomous snakes on the planet live. Yeah, I left that part out. Well, I'm talking about it now. It's not just like garter snakes slithering about here. Isla de Quimada Grande is home to the golden lancehead, a beautiful creature in its own right that just happens to be one of the most lethal bites to humans. A bite from this snake can cause, let's list off some fun side effects: kidney damage, necrosis, brain hemorrhaging, venom poisoning, and oh, my favorite, internal intestinal damage. So just leave them alone. Even if for some bizarre reason I've told you all of that and you just love going to places you're not meant to and you're just dying for a chance to go visit venomous Snake Island, you are going to run into a bit of trouble because it's literally forbidden. The Brazilian government strictly monitors those who travel. Naval forces do visit annually to maintain the lighthouse, and there's a research station to study and analyze the local population, but all of these visits are accompanied by paramedics and trained doctors, just in case any of the locals decide to say hello the only way they know how. Am I the only one who thinks the golden lance head is kind of cute, like in a little weird way? I don't want one as a pet, but I don't know, I think these danger noodles have very cute little eyes, but maybe that's just one of my red flags. And number 1, Poveglia. This list has not been pleasant. I guess I should have expected that, given the tone of all of these wretched, horrible, and haunted places. So let's close this list off and find somewhere nice and sunny to get away from all of life's woes. Maybe somewhere nice like, I don't know, Italy? Maybe somewhere off the coast of Venice, like the island of Poveglia? Now, Poveglia is an infamous island in Italian history. It once served as a quarantine zone and final resting place for victims of the Black Plague. You know that one. As the plague ravaged Europe and paranoia set in across the lands, it was said that anyone who showed so much as a symptom, if you had a runny nose, they shipped you off to Poveglia to live out the rest of your days. Oftentimes, they would send people who weren't even really sick. You just complain about a headache trying to get a day off work and you're on a longboat to the last island you're ever going to go to. It's said that over 50% of the island's soil is made of burned human ash. Let that set in for a second. The ground itself is haunted. In the early 19th century, the island converted from a quarantine zone to a mental asylum because I guess it thought that that wasn't scary enough. The asylum did not do much to improve Poveglia's reputation. Instead of being home to the sick, now it was home to droves of mentally unwell patients being made into victims via doctors' sick experiments. Cruel doctors at the asylum would impose their patients into lobotomies with no concern for sanitation or their safety, with chisels, drills, and rarely if ever using anesthetic. An old ghost story has it that the main doctor at the asylum was haunted by the spirits of his former patients and the crimes he'd committed, and it drove him to such madness that he cast himself off the bell tower of the island, where they say his screams can still be heard. Now, if I told you all of that and you still want to visit, first of all, why? And second of all, you're going to need to be pretty crafty, as it's totally, completely forbidden. You will be pressed to the fullest extent of the law if you're caught trespassing, not even remotely worth the risk if you ask me. At best, you get arrested. At worst, haunted for the rest of your days. Number 5, the Castle of Good Hope. Coming up first on our list of haunted hotspots is going to be the Castle of Good Hope in Cape Town, South Africa. It was first built in the 17th century by the Dutch East India Company, so you just know there's bad vibes there to begin with. It's the oldest colonial building in South Africa, and if you believe the local legends, it's allegedly one of the most paranormal spots in the country. The first reported paranormal sighting from the castle came from 1915, when a tall, pale, mysterious man dressed in black, he sounds familiar, whose attire didn't match the era at all, country or anything, appeared seemingly out of nowhere, walking alongside one of the castle's ramparts before vanishing as soon as he appeared. Now that's pretty weird, definitely, not quite enough to label a place haunted, but it was a one-off incident, right? Well, in 1947, this same strange man kept appearing, making regular visits for weeks on end. He'd be jumping off the castle's walls, seemingly plummeting to his doom, only to reappear again to do it all again. I gotta be honest, he sounds kinda sick, all things considered. Sounds like he just wants to bungee jump and vibe out as a ghost. Another popular story from the castle is that of former governor, one Peter Gijsbert van Noot. Whew, you try saying that 5 times fast. He passed in the castle on the 23rd of April, 1728, the same day he had sentenced 7 army deserters to the death sentence. The legend has it that one of these soldiers hexed him and demanded he face him and watch the execution. Van Noot was apparently a bit squeamish and refused the invitation, and later that day was found dead at his desk, slumped over. And some believe his ghost still wanders the castle's halls. And there were more ghosts I couldn't even fit into this one video because there's so many hauntings from this place. I recommend you read up about it afterwards. And if you want way more videos about haunted spots, ghosts, goblins, aliens, cryptids, conspiracies, true stories, fake stories, we got all of that and then some. So click through on Top 5 Scary, find something to watch, something to fall asleep to, I don't judge. Stay subscribed, stay scared, but stay watching this video. We worked hard on it. Alright, moving on through. Number 4, the Chernobyl exclusion zone. Maybe this one's a bit of an obvious pick, but our next entry is going to be the infamous Chernobyl exclusion zone, the real-life post-apocalyptic wasteland of Pripyat. Have you ever heard the word canopsia? Maybe not, I don't even know if I'm pronouncing that right. I only learned this word today. But it refers to a feeling of seeing an atmosphere that you know is supposed to be populated, but isn't. And I feel like that word definitely applies to Chernobyl, or like liminal is a very good feeling too. It is kind of a liminal space, because you see all of these buildings and you can imagine a life happening there, but it's frozen in time. The Chernobyl blast would be enough to cover a whole video and then some. I heard there was a very good HBO series about it. And trying to cover it in under 2 minutes would be foolhardy, so here's the super quick Coles Note versions. Is that a late night safety test simulating a station blackout power failure ended up starting a huge blast, which eventually threw radioactive material that blew all over Pripyat and the surrounding areas, causing everyone to have to pick up everything and evacuate, never to return. 50,000 people used to live here, and now it's a ghost town. And yeah, I'm not gonna lie, I only know that line from COD 4. All gillied up, best level in the series. That one's just for my gamers out there. Now you can actually visit Chernobyl, although they don't really recommend you do. You know, it's not a fun hotspot for tourism or anything. People who delve into the zone for recreation, or to find things, are called stalkers, named after the Tarkovsky movie of the same name, revolving around visits to a strange zone, and not the video game Stalker, where bandits raid the apocalyptic zone, although you would be forgiven for thinking that. Visiting the zone is no easy task. For one, it's recommended that you absolutely go with a guide or someone who knows the area very well, and then come all the requirements. You mustn't touch anything whatsoever. No vegetation. There are wild dogs that live in Chernobyl, and they're very cute, but you can't touch them at all because there could be traces of radiation in their fur. You have to wear an outfit that covers as much as possible. Big boots, you know, don't show up in your sunners and flip-flops. They recommend wearing a mask too to avoid inhaling any dust or, you know, any of the radioactive particles that could still be floating around in the air. Real life radiation, not half as fun as the comic books. You are very unlikely to come out of here with any web-slinging superpowers. More likely just gonna have a bad cough and, you know, your family's gonna get real sad. You're asked not to enter any buildings because some are so degraded that they could collapse literally at any minute with the wrong pressure applied somewhere, and then you're just another tragedy. Now, I've never been, but from pictures, Chernobyl genuinely seems unreal, like it's not part of the world, you know? It seems like it's something out of a movie or a video game, but it's this harrowing, soul-crushing reflection of our reality, a stark warning on the dangers of nuclear power, and a grim reminder that your life as you know it can be upended forever in but a moment.
Number 3. Lapril House and Bahay Nupula. These two houses share a similar dark and horrific history. The Lapril House was built in 1920 and was occupied by the head of the Lapril clans, Don Roberto and Donna Victorina. But during the Second World War, Japanese soldiers took over the home and used it as a den to severely harm victims. Much like the Lapril house, Bahay Nupula was used as a base where they inflicted equally inhumane, despicable acts onto women. During the house's Japanese soldier occupation, soldiers would abduct citizens, accuse them of being American spies, and then harm them in every way known to man. The Lapril house is now considered one of the most haunted houses in the Philippines. Caretakers who work at the house have claimed to see headless ghosts dressed in soldiers' uniforms. They've said that they hear doors opening and closing, and some even said that they can still hear the ear-splitting screams and begs from the people who experienced torment in the house. The Lapril house has become a popular tourist attraction, drawing visitors who are intrigued by its rich history and supernatural oddities. Despite its strange reputation, the Lapril house stands as a testament to Baguio's architectural heritage and continues to fascinate both history enthusiasts and ghost hunters. Bahay Nupula is a deep red house that is labeled as haunted because of the horrendous acts that Japanese soldiers forced onto abducted victims during World War II. At the time, it is said that Filipino guerrillas first used the house as a safe haven, where they would strategize and come together in the trying time. But Japanese soldiers took over the home. They left them without food until they perished. They violated local women without mercy, and they harmed people at random. The house is currently abandoned, but people who live near the area have reported hearing screams and wails calling out for help, and have even seen a group of ghostly Japanese soldiers walking around the house's property. The acts that were committed against innocent people are appalling and heartbreaking. Again, these houses are another example of deeply saddening locations that have become dark tourism attractions. Number 2. Ozone Disco. On March 18, 1996, at 11:35 p.m., the Philippines witnessed one of the deadliest nightclub disasters in its history, the Ozone Disco tragedy. The incident occurred at the Ozone Disco, a popular nightclub located in Quezon City, Metro Manila. It was a night that would forever haunt the nation's collective memory, leaving behind a legacy of grief, lessons learned, and calls for stricter safety regulations. That horrific night, the club was packed with hundreds of excited people, celebrating the end of the school year. The nightclub had gained a reputation for its trendy music and vibrant atmosphere, which drew a young and energetic crowd. The tragedy unfolded when an electric malfunction led to a massive fire which spread rapidly throughout the disco. The nightclub's inadequate safety measures exacerbated the situation. There was only one narrow exit. The club was at least 300 people over capacity, and the club itself did not have adequate emergency exits. As the flames engulfed the nightclub, screams for help filled the air. People clamored to locked doors, ending up in piles as the hot blazes tore at their skin. Tragically, 162 lives were lost that night, and countless others suffered injuries. Families were torn apart, and the nation was left in mourning. The Ozone Disco tragedy serves as a grim reminder of the importance of stringent safety standards in public establishments. The aftermath of the Ozone Disco tragedy prompted widespread outrage and calls for accountability. Investigations revealed a shocking lack of adherence to fire safety regulations and building codes. The nightclub's owners were subsequently charged with criminal negligence, and several government officials faced disciplinary actions for failing to enforce safety standards. The tragedy also led to significant changes in the Philippines' approach to fire safety and building regulations. It prompted the government to revisit and strengthen existing laws, ensuring that public establishments adhere to safety standards more rigorously. Moreover, the disaster prompted greater awareness among the public about the importance of fire safety and the need for responsible business practices. The Ozone Disco tragedy is a painful chapter in the Philippines' history, but it has not been forgotten. Each year on March 18th, memorial services and remembrances are held to honor the victims and reflect on the lessons learned. The tragedy serves as a stark reminder of the consequences of negligence and the critical importance of prioritizing safety in public places. The abandoned disco has since been boarded up. You cannot legally enter the building where such a tragedy occurred. People who have managed to disregard the public trespassing laws have described hearing the screams of victims, a clawing at the door, and the faint sound of crackling music, sounding as though the notes themselves were burning into ash. Number 1. Manila Film Center. The Manila Film Center is an iconic and controversial structure. It stands as a symbol of both the Philippines' aspirations in the world of cinema and the dark shadows that sometimes loom over the industry. Located on the long shore of Manila Bay, this controversial building was constructed as a venue for the 1982 Manila International Film Festival, an event that planned to showcase both Filipino and international cinema. However, the story behind its construction and the subsequent events have left a permanent mark on the country's history. It was built during the regime of the then President Ferdinand Marcos, and the construction of the Manila Film Center was surrounded by secrecy and controversy. To meet the tight deadline for the festival's opening, an estimated 4,000 workers were employed, working round-the-clock in hazardous conditions. Tragically, a portion of the building collapsed on November 17, 1981, burying several workers under the rubble, still alive. At the demand of the government to expedite the center's completion, the workers' bodies, alive and dead, were covered in cement and left entombed within the structure. Despite this tragedy, the Manila Film Center still opened its doors on January 18, 1982, with much fanfare. It became a hub for film enthusiasts and filmmakers, hosting international film screenings and competitions. And most of them had no idea that they were standing on top of a mass grave. However, the controversy surrounding its construction continued to haunt the venue. Rumors of paranormal activities, particularly ghosts of the workers who lost their lives during the construction, further fueled the Manila Film Center's infamy. In the years that followed, the Manila Film Center faced challenges, including changes in ownership and management. It fell into disrepair and was largely abandoned, becoming a dilapidated and spooky relic of the past. Various proposals for its renovation and revitalization were put forward, but none of them came to fruition. Despite its troubled history, the Manila Film Center remains a significant piece of architectural heritage in the Philippines. In recent years, there have been renewed efforts to restore and repurpose the building. Some have suggested transforming it into a cultural and arts center, while others see its potential as value for events and expeditions, or others see its potential as a venue for events and exhibitions. The government has even received and reviewed applications for the renovations and proposals for the building's future. There's no memorial dedication for the workers that lost their lives, and the government does not accept the blame or take responsibility for the tragedy that occurred because of their impatience. Many people travel from all over the world and country hoping to catch a glimpse of the ghosts of fallen workers. Number 5. The Sulu Archipelago and Sea. The Sulu Archipelago, located in the southwestern regions of the Philippines, is known for its stunning natural beauty, but it is also known for the complex challenges that have risen. The region consists of many small islands, including Sulu, Tawi-Tawi, and Basilan, and is surrounded by the Sulu Sea. The current state of the Sulu Archipelago and its surrounding seas involves a mixture of socio-economic, security, and political concerns. The Sulu Archipelago has been labeled as a Level 4 safety risk by the United States Bureau of Consular Affairs, and it is strongly recommended that you do not travel or visit the area. The Sulu Archipelago is currently facing high rates of crime, civil unrest, rebel forces, and abductions. Armed groups are currently and consistently plotting abductions, bombings, and other attacks, with no discretion or care for citizen casualties. They attack with little to no warning and specifically target tourist locations like markets, malls, or government facilities. Rebels are abducting people on land and sea for ransom, bombings, and other attacks that target U.S. citizens, foreigners, civilians, and local government institutions, security forces, and authorities. The U.S. government has a limited ability to help or provide services to civilians, because U.S. government employees have to obtain a special authorization to travel to the affected areas. The Philippine government declared that they are in a state of national emergency. There are a lot of pickpockets, scammers, internet scams, and credit card scams. People are warned to turn down offers of food, drinks, or rides from strangers. Travelers traveling alone have been abducted after they were slipped a strong sedative. Because of the current climate, the Sulu Archipelago is not a safe place to visit, and it is definitely not a safe place to live. I think that too often people think that wars and organized criminal attacks are a thing of the past, or that they're exaggerated. They're not. If anything, the attacks that are shared are often sugar-coated. This is all happening now. People right now, people your age, people my age are being killed, tormented, abducted, essayed, and are living in constant rational fear. A lot more attention definitely needs to be brought to the situation, and the fact that any coverage surrounding the Philippines is so unbelievably minimal and inaccessible is so saddening, and I'm sure frustrating for anyone who has loved ones in the Philippines or lives in the Philippines themselves. Number 4. De La Salle University. De La Salle University is a private Catholic research and educational university. It was established by the Institute of the Brothers of the Christian Schools in 1911 as De La Salle College, which changed to De La Salle University in 1975 when it was granted university status. When it was founded, the De La Salle brothers were nervously reluctant to open the school because Americans insisted that the first school made should only be available to the ruling Filipino elite. However, a school for the upper-class children of ruling elite families who need good moral and spiritual training was opened. By 1921, the school had 425 students. The school offered amazing programs and was widely appreciated for the educational staff and grand accommodations. But during the Second World War, De La Salle was used as a secret shelter for displaced citizens, wounded soldiers, families, and freedom fighters at the beginning of the Japanese occupation. But on January 2nd, 1942, it was occupied by the Imperial Japanese Army and made into military defense quarters. Several bombings and attacks occurred on campus, but classes did continue until they were discontinued and forced to vacate the campus at the demand of Japanese forces. Most people left the campus, but Egbert Xavier Kelly refused to leave. So, on February 7th, 1945, he was abducted by Japanese soldiers, harmed severely, and then killed. On February 12th, just after noon, 20 Japanese soldiers forcibly entered the campus and massacred 16 boys who resided in the chapel of the campus and an additional 25 other residents. There were only 22 survivors. It's now said that the ghosts of the students, teachers, and families are searching for safety. They're still trapped in the same place they died. It has since become a dark tourism location, which a lot of people find to be extremely strange. Tourism that focuses on places with dark or tragic histories, like cemeteries, war sites, churches, or sites that people passed at. Since the site is an active school, tourists are not very welcome to visit the location. Many people do try to sneak in, but it's highly discouraged, and any overly curious onlookers may be arrested, charged with trespassing, or have legal action taken out against them.
And for number 3, we have the Doomsday Vault. The Svalbard Global Seed Vault, also known as the Doomsday Vault, is located deep in an icy mountain on an island above the Arctic Circle between Norway and the North Pole, and holds great importance for the future. Surprisingly, it is a storage for seeds. Yes, you heard me right, it holds millions of seeds from more than 930,000 varieties of food crops, and they are stored in this vault, and 13,000 years of agricultural history. Its main purpose is to provide a long-term storage of duplicate seeds conserved in gene banks around the world and provide security of the world's food supply. In events such as war, natural disasters, and even a pandemic, this vault aims to prevent the permanent loss of crops. Each country deposits copies of the seeds they hold in their own banks, and they remain property of the depositing countries, which is then withdrawn in the event that their own stockpile is compromised. In 2015, the vault was used to restart the International Center of Agricultural Research in the dry areas after the Alpo seed bank had been abandoned during the Syrian civil war. And in order to preserve the contents, the Arctic Vault is protected by nearly 400 feet of rocks with high ceilings, and according to those who work in the vault, because you're inside a mountain, there's hardly any sound and all you can hear is yourself. In fact, countries like North Korea even store their seeds in this vault in the same aisle as the South Korean seeds. The vault opens 3 times a year to accept new deposits from the other seed banks from around the world. Instead of flying there to see the place yourself, they actually have virtual tours online, and maybe I'll run into you there. And for our number 2, we have the mausoleum of Qin Shi Huang, the first emperor of the Qin dynasty, known as Shanxi Emperor from 1643 to 1661, has a mausoleum located in the Lintong district of China and was constructed over 38 years ago between 246 and 208 BCE. It sits beneath a 76-meter tall tomb, and the layout of the mausoleum is modeled on the layout of the capital of the Qin dynasty. There are thousands of statues located at this site, which is crazy because it wasn't discovered until 1974, and the emperor is buried and surrounded by terracotta warriors, and each figure is different. Some have horses and others have weapons, and they all hold details of realism. There are approximately 8,000 life-size statues of soldiers which all surround the mausoleum of Qin Shi Huang, and were built to protect the emperor in the afterlife, even though the emperor himself has traditionally been portrayed quite poorly. The tomb of China's first emperor has not yet been opened, and archaeologists share how they are afraid it is filled with traps. Sima Qian, who is a historian who lived around 100 years after the emperor and wrote a description of the mausoleum which read, "Palaces and scenic towers for 100 officials were constructed, and the tomb was filled with rare artifacts and wonderful treasure." But along with all the treasure, they also wrote how craftsmen at the time were ordered to make crossbows and arrows specifically to attack anyone who enters the tomb. But that's not all, because mercury and candles made from fat were talked about, which some fear was inside. Although scientists fear opening the tomb, they did measure mercury levels around the area of the mausoleum, and they were much higher than expected, which some believe the emperor drank and could have played a role in his early passing. Some things from the mausoleum have been uncovered, such as a 666-piece ancient armor, which was estimated to take around 440 days to complete by a skilled craftsman. Whether treasure is really hidden inside the tomb, maybe one day we'll know. And for our number 1 spot, we have Snake Island. This island located off the coast of Brazil lives up to its name because it is infested with thousands of deadly snakes. The area of this island is around 106 acres and the terrain varies from bare rocks to rainforest. And Snake Island is the only natural home of the critically endangered venomous Bothrops insularis, also known as a golden lancehead pit viper, which actually eats birds. There is an estimated number of around 2,000 to 4,000 of this rare snake species, but within an hour of being bit, it can be fatal, which means you would have to make it to the hospital located off the island quickly in order to have a chance of survival. And if you're wondering how the snakes ended up trapped on this island, well, it's because of thousands of years ago, following the end of the last ice age, rising ocean levels disconnected the island from the mainland, and due to the evolutionary pressure, it allowed the snakes to adapt to their new environment as well as an increasing for their population very quickly. Of course, they have a ton of snakes, but this island is one of the few islands that have 3 to 5 times stronger venom compared to any mainland snake, which makes it that much more dangerous. Plus, back in the early 1990s, a few people actually inhabited this island and was tasked with running the lighthouse, but according to a legend, this family passed due to the snakes, and since then, the lighthouse has been automated. And if you're one of those rare humans that actually want to visit this island, it is closed to the public for protection of both people and the snakes. It is only accessible by the Brazilian Navy and selected researchers, and those aren't baby tiny snakes, but rather quite big ones with no predators on the island. But good thing is they don't swim, so they should hopefully stay on the island.
Number 3, the Forbidden City. The Forbidden City. Well, that tracks. That sounds very forbidden. Well, back in the 14th century, when it stood as the heart of the Ming dynasty and served as an imperial palace, yeah, you'd have a pretty difficult time getting access if you were but a common serf like myself. But I think they've relaxed their stance just a little bit, because I found more than a few Google recommended articles for tourist things to do in the Forbidden City. I think they just charge like price of admission now. So it's actually very easy to get into the Forbidden City, and the Chinese government does know about this. So the formerly Forbidden City, which is not quite as catchy a name, is a beautiful tourist spot and definitely worth checking out. It's got years upon years of culture and rich history behind it, and most importantly, it's said to be very haunted. The Forbidden City is a pretty credible place for a haunting, if I must say. Ghosts are said to be born out of a place of malice, and the Forbidden City has over 600 years of deaths, assassinations, and who knows how many backstabs and plot twists where the intrigue are out there. The most recurring ghost story coming out of the Forbidden City, though, is that there's a ghost of a weeping woman, all dressed in white, wandering during the dark hours. Following her is a lingering flute playing. Visitors claim at times they see ghost dogs that run through corridors at the edge of the city, digging up ghost bones. Some travelers report feeling an indescribable strangeness while wandering through the temples. Could it just be they're overcome with beauty and majesty of one of the wonders of the world, or is there spectral energy floating through the air? Before we move off on this one, I want you to take a look at this. A travel blog from Vancouver posted about their experiences traveling through the Imperial City. They noted how odd it was that all the doorways had a raised platform. The guide told them that was a way to confuse ghosts to keep them out. They took tons of photos, but only one stood out for them when they came back. See anything suspicious? Like a ghostly figure just kinda hanging right there in the center? Ugh. Number 2, Dead Fengman Village. Coming up next on this list is going to be Fengman Village. Fengman Village is sometimes known as Dead Fengman's Village, which is not exactly the most welcoming name you want to hear, but there's a pretty good reason for it though. The village itself is about as dead as a village can be, long abandoned by an unknown tribe. It's located in the valley of a nameless mountain in northern China's Henan province. An abandoned city left in a nameless mountain. It seems like it's the start of a chosen one, like heroic journey out there, start of a quest. The surrounding landscape is supposedly quite beautiful. A flowing brook, a lush forestry and trees and buildings from the Qing dynasty. 39 buildings, 200 rooms, all of them left completely vacant. And the weird part? No one even knows why. There is extremely little information to be found on Fengman Village. Who lived there, what happened to them, and so on, making it absolutely rife for urban legends of hauntings and ghosts. It's a fairly popular spot for backpackers and hikers with an interest in the supernatural who are looking to discover something in the lost village. One story tells of a hiker named Maitreya who would make expeditions out to Fengman Village, camping alongside the river just outside with a few companions. On one of his treks, he got the bright idea in the middle of the night to prank his companions by jumping and scaring them, which, let me just say, I absolutely have to respect that. You're camping out in an abandoned ghost village, you have to seize the opportunity to prank your friends just a little bit. Well, before he got a chance, he got served up his own scare because he swears a discordant, sad-sounding voice kept calling his name out over and over in a voice he said he couldn't recognize or had never heard before. And none of his friends had any idea what he was talking about. At number 1, Chow Nai 81. Our next entry is Chow Nai number 81, a building that has a fairly notable reputation, being listed as the most haunted building in Beijing. It's Beijing's most famous haunted house. The ghost most commonly reported in this house is that of a woman who was the wife of an officer in the National Revolutionary Army during the Chinese Civil War in the late 1940s. He had fled to Taiwan with his compatriots before the end of the war and left his precious wife behind. Naturally, she was pretty upset about this. She was despondent. She felt that without her husband, she had nothing left to live for and thusly took her own life. And her spirit has been trapped in the house ever since. Residents who live around the area claim that during thunderstorms you can hear shrill, violent screaming coming from inside the house. Visitors report that walking into the house immediately, you feel a cold chill come over you and a feeling of inescapable dread. Not good. Not good to feel those things. There's stories of people going inexplicably missing connected to this mysterious house. One notable story is that of a British priest who is said to have initially built the property to serve as a church who went missing shortly before it was finished. When an investigation was launched to look for him, they supposedly discovered a secret tunnel that led to a neighborhood in the northeast, and the priest's body was never discovered. Now, another story was that 3 construction workers in the basement of a neighboring building weren't paying attention to what they were doing and broke through a thin wall leading into building 81. They went through the hole and the 3 of them vanished. And now there are people who conspire that this event is what led the government to cancel its plans to demolish the building for fear that it might be haunted. And it hasn't been yet because it's still standing there, and you're more than welcome to visit. You can take a guided ghost tour if you're feeling brave enough, and hopefully you come back. Number 5, Fengdu Ghost City. Fengdu Ghost City. Well, right off the bat, I feel like this is probably a spooky place. You don't name cities Ghost City unless there's a good reason for it. Well, the good reason is that the city got its name during the Eastern Han Dynasty. 2 imperial nobles, Yin Changshen and Wang Fengpin, came to Ming Mountain to discover a way to achieve immortality. Combining their 2 names, Yin and Wang, Ying Wang, translates to King of Hell, and that cemented the site as an underworld hotspot. Since then, the place was built to be a shrine to the underworld with several temples showing paintings and sculptures of people being punished for their sins and cast into eternal damnation. It's pretty spooky, but honestly it's pretty cool. It's good craftsmanship. And there is some rich folklore to go with the place. Chinese mythology and beliefs say that the dead must pass 3 tests before they're allowed to cross into the underworld, which sounds exhausting to me. I can't even enjoy the relief of death before you're asked to solve some riddles and pass some tests. The village is kind of like a place to conduct these tests, and now you can actually go to it yourself and do it as a tourist attraction and watch performers act out all the trials. But here's the trials. The first test is passing the Bridge of Helplessness, which does sound a little bit like it's from one of the Dark Souls games. It was built during the Ming Dynasty, and good souls are allowed to pass, while evil ones will fall into the water below. Then, you proceed to Ghost Torturing Pass. Well, that's a fun place to be, where they present themselves for judgment. Finally, the last test is at the entrance to Tianzi Palace, where the ghost must stand on a certain stone on 1 foot for 3 minutes straight. I don't know why I'm standing on 1 foot when the camera is above my waist. You can't tell what I'm doing. I could be standing on as many feet as I want. A good soul will be able to do it, an evil one will fall over. Now this site now is a popular tourist destination due to its very unique structures and fascinating, if not a little bit horrifying decor. I'd want one of those little statues maybe have in my house. I think they're kind of cool, to be honest. And if you're looking for more hellish haunted spots, terrifying tales of poltergeists, ghosts, ghouls, cryptids, aliens, and all kinds of freaks under the sun and above it, while Top 5 Scary is simply the only place to be. Subscribe and stay scared. Number 4, Caishikou Grounds. If you go to Caishikou today, you probably wouldn't think much of it at all. Most notable thing around there is a subway station, and aside from that, there's a vegetable market outside, and you can probably score a pretty decent deal on corn. But if you visited Caishikou back in the 19th century, however, when it served as an execution grounds for prisoners, you probably wouldn't feel too welcome. Thousands of prisoners were brought to the Caishikou grounds to serve out their last moments. Every autumn, prisoners were taken through the Zhuan Women, which earned the fun nickname, the Gate of of death at dawn. Awesome. The doomed would then be lined up east to west, their necks stretched by rope to make it easier to chop. Well, that's good. We always want to make it as easy as possible for the guy chopping necks. A singular chop to the neck was considered the easy way out of a one-way trip to Caishikou. Prisoners accused of more serious crimes would be sentenced to lingchi, which was a horrid punishment of slowly slicing someone many times, leading to it sensationally being dubbed the death of 1,000 cuts by outsiders. These executions were designed to be a public spectacle, something for everybody to come and enjoy, something for the whole family to do when no good movies were playing. Caishikou was one of the busiest intersections in the outer city of Beijing, so crowds would gather to see these things. Most horrifically about this, though, is that sometimes the prisoners who were executed, their bodies were photographed and made into postcards. Given this sordid history, is it much of a surprise at all that passers-by and visitors claim that they can sometimes see ghostly apparitions making their way through the dark hours of the night, or that you can hear screams at all hours? If you ever visit Beijing and make a stop by Caishikou, take a photo. The postcards they sell in the gift shop are a little dicey.
Number 3, part of New York City. North Brother Island is one of the most popular abandoned places in the entirety of the USA. North and South Brother Islands are a pair of small islands located in New York City's East River between the mainland Bronx and Rikers Island, which is, home to the jail of the same name. According to the New York City Parks Department, which oversees the islands, North Brother Island has about 20 acres of land and South Brother has about 6. The northern part of the island was uninhabited until around 1885, even though a lighthouse was built in 1869. In the mid-1880s, the Riverside Hospital moved there from Blackwell's Island, which is now known as Roosevelt Island. Riverside Hospital had been founded in the 1850s as a smallpox hospital to treat and isolate victims of that disease. Its mission eventually expanded to other quarantinable diseases, initially typhoid and then smallpox and tuberculosis. During the polio epidemic in 1916, Riverside treated numerous patients. The island was also the last refuge to over 1,000 people of the General Slocum, whose passenger ship sank in its waters. Originally developed as a quarantine hospital though, Riverside was home to Mary Mallon, who was more well known as Typhoid Mary. She was an Irish-born American cook believed to have infected between 51 and 122 people with typhoid fever, which caused 3 confirmed deaths, with unconfirmed estimates of as many as 50. She was the first person in the United States identified as an asymptomatic carrier of the pathogenic bacteria Salmonella typhi, and was forcibly quarantined twice by authorities, the second time for the remainder of her life because she persisted in working as a cook and thereby exposed others to the disease. I can't even make fun of it. I've worked through some crazy rib injuries, colds, and loss of voice when I probably shouldn't have been. Her popular nickname has since become a term for persons who spread disease or other misfortune, not always aware that they are doing so. According to the Smithsonian Magazine, the need for a quarantine hospital in a remote location had declined by the 1930s as public health advances lessened the need to quarantine large numbers of individuals, excluding recent history. Following World War II, the island housed war veterans who were students at local colleges and their families. After the nationwide housing shortage, sort of lessened, the island was once again abandoned until the 1950s when a center opened to treat adolescent addicts. The facility claimed it was the first to offer treatment, rehabilitation, and education facilities to, the young offenders. Spicy spoon juice addicts were confined to this facility and locked in a room until they were clean. Many of them believed they were being held against their will. And staff corruption and cost forced the facility to close in 1963. Nowadays, North Brother Island has a bird sanctuary and is permanently shut for the common people, although special access for scientific purposes can be granted. The islands had long been privately owned, but were purchased by the federal government in 2007 with some funding from the Trust for Public Land and others, and both were given to the city. Number 2, the Doomsday Vault. The world is obviously going to end at some point, but when and how is a very popular subject of debate. I've survived the Y2K hullabaloo and also the big 2012 countdown, but does anyone know the next big date for the end of the world? Let me know in the comments, and also feel free to leave your own end of the world theories. But in 1984, Norgen began storing backup Nordic plant germplasm via frozen seeds in an abandoned coal mine outside of Longyearbyen. 2001, the International Treaty on Plant Genetic Resources for Food and Agriculture was adopted, and national governments began to ratify the treaty soon afterwards. It established a multilateral system for plant genetic resources that included providing access to the materials and providing mechanisms so that those who use the resources can share any derived benefits. A team led by conservationist Carrie Fowler actively campaigned for the development of the seed vault and approached the Norwegian government. They conducted a feasibility study in 2004 and concluded that Svalbard was an appropriate location for for long-term storage. Also in 2004, the ITPGRFA entered into force and created the legal framework for having one international security facility. The FAO Commission on Genetic Resources for Food and Agriculture endorsed the initiative, and in October of 2004, the Norwegian government committed to fund the seed vault and begin the construction. So sometimes referred to as the Doomsday Vault, the Global Seed Vault in Norway is actually a very important place for all of us. It's a secure backup facility for the world's crop diversity on the Norwegian island of Spitsbergen in the remote Arctic Svalbard archipelago. The seed vault is managed under terms spelled out in a tripartite agreement among the Norwegian government, the Crop Trust, and the Nordic Genetic Resource Center. You know, NordGen for short. The Norwegian government entirely funded the seed vault's approximately $8.8 million USD construction cost. Norway and the Crop Trust pay for operational costs, and storing seeds in the vault is free to depositors. It stores 100 million seeds from all over the world to restore the plant kingdom in case something really bad happens to our planet's vegetation. Opened in 2008, the vault was built to last around 200 years, and it can withstand explosions and earthquakes. Also, since it was placed on the side of a mountain, it will still be above sea level even if all the ice on the planet melts. It's interesting to know that the vault knows no politics. Even North Korea has given it seeds for storage there. Number 1, Area 51. Okay, I didn't mean for it to rhyme, but I love that it did. Area 51 is the common name of a highly classified United States Air Force facility within the Nevada Test and Training Range, located in southern Nevada. A remote detachment administered by Edwards Air Force Base, the facility is officially called Homey Airport or Groom Lake. Details of its operations are not made public, but the USAF says that it's an open training range, and it's commonly thought to support the development and testing of experimental aircraft and weapon systems. The USAF and CIA acquired the site in 1955, primarily for flight testing the Lockheed U-2 aircraft. But Area 51 is always wrapped in conspiracy theories. Conspiracy theorists, such as myself, believe that the officials conceal alien evidence at the base. Hey, it's totally off limits to commoners, and even the USA barely acknowledges the existence of the place. It has never been declared like a secret base, but all research and occurrences in Area 51 are top secret or sensitive compartmented information. The CIA publicly acknowledged the base's existence on the 25th of June of 2013 for the first time following a Freedom of Information Act request filed way back in 2005 and declassified documents detailing its history and purpose. Now, there have been many reports over the years that kind of confirm theories that alien and UFO paraphernalia are housed there, and that's something I think I'll always believe until proven otherwise. At the end of the day, the gates of Area 51 will be a populous tourist destination until civilians can be allowed in or the public learns more. Number 5, the Vatican Archives. Technically, you can visit the Vatican City and tour the usual open to tourism spots, but the archives have always been locked down. I'll start this off by saying it's no secret I'm highly critical of the Vatican, and I believe they should be challenged so much more than they already are. They have too much control, and they know it. Their archives have inspired much suspicion and speculation over the years, believed to contain proof of aliens and predictions of the apocalypse, and the Pope's secret stash of adult videos. Hey, popes weren't always celibate, just saying. The structure contains 85 kilometers of bookshelves, and it wasn't until very recently that the Pope opened up the secret archives to select members of the public. And even that is still restricted to such an extreme that I wouldn't really call it open. You have to apply for access and reapply every 6 months if you get lucky enough to get granted access in the first place. No one is allowed to request anything specific, but they'll be given assorted dossiers of the most random and heavily redacted information, and essentially it's a take it or leave it situation. Imagine going to the library to borrow a history textbook, and you have to supply the same amount of paperwork that you need to rent an apartment, only for the librarian to tell you that you have to wait 6 months. So you go back and get handed a random stack of magazines instead. There's allegedly endless correspondence between the Pope and famous historical figures like Michelangelo, Mozart, Queen Elizabeth, Abraham Lincoln, and the evil German dictator whose name I can't say, just to name a few. There are even documents about the trials of the Knights Templar and Galileo. There are letters from Henry VIII in which he tried to convince the Pope to grant his divorce from Catherine of Aragon so that he could marry his true love, Anne Boleyn. Mary, Queen of Scots, pleaded for the Pope to save her life right before she was executed. It illustrates the power that the Pope has wielded throughout human history. Some of these documents date as far back as the 8th century. There's also allegedly papal account books, a letter from Michelangelo to the Pope Julius II, and Martin Luther's excommunication document. After everything I know about the Vatican Bank, I would love to get my hands on those accounting books. In 1988, news reports emerged that strange, elongated, distinctly alien-looking skulls had been found during a restoration of the Vatican Library, with many suggesting that those archives must be hiding evidence of extraterrestrials. Perhaps an understanding between the Vatican and extraterrestrials is too far out there, too convenient to contemplate. Except the Vatican itself does not run from ties to aliens. Consider the words of Cardinal Conrado Balducci, a high-ranking Vatican official since the 1960s and close friend to many popes, who in 1998 instructed followers to remember a paragraph of the New Testament where St. Paul refers to Christ as King of the universe, and not only as King of the world. That means that all beings in the universe, including aliens, are reconcilable with God. Heck, the current pope has said he would baptize an alien, so that's progress for the church, I think. When pressed, however, the official spokesperson for the archives admitted that there remains a section that really is secret. No one has access to this part. No journalists or even the most prominent scholars. I don't care if I sound like a broken record. It's way too suspicious, but sadly I'll never be able to explore it for myself. Number 4 is Snake Island. Formerly known as Ilha de Quimida Grande in Brazil, and less formally, Alexa's Nightmare, it's home to the deadliest snakes in the entire world, and is considered part of the municipality of Itanham in the state of Sao Paulo. The island is small in size, only 43 hectares, and has a temperate climate, with the terrain ranging from bare rock to rainforest. So the island has a variety of vegetation, and no, I will not be naming it again because it was hard enough to pronounce the first time. It's partly covered in rainforest and partly bare rock and grassy cleared areas as a result of deforestation. The deforestation is actually the origin of the island's name. The term queimada is Portuguese for forest fire, and locals once attempted to clear land for a banana plantation on the island by burning. A lighthouse was constructed in 1909 to steer ships away from the island, and the last human inhabitants of the land left when it was automated in the 1920s. Since then, it is strictly off limits to the public, as it is now estimated to be home to one snake or more for every square meter of the island, of which there are 430,000 square meters. I don't like that math, and now I get where the Indiana Jones story got the inspiration for their snake pit. And they aren't just some harmless grass snakes that only frighten you with their look but can't cause damage. The snakes living on this island are among the world's most dangerous species, specifically the golden lancehead viper, whose venom melts flesh around the bite. It is estimated that there are approximately 4,000 lanceheads alone on the island, and since that's the entire population of the species in the world, they're technically an endangered species. The vipers mainly eat the migratory birds that visit the island, and they've evolved a venomous bite, like I said, strong enough to take down their prey before they can fly away. The snakes became trapped on the island thousands of years ago following the end of the last ice age, when rising ocean levels disconnected the island from the mainland. The ensuing evolutionary pressure allowed the snakes to adapt to their new environment, increasing rapidly in population and rendering the island dangerous to public visitation. The snakes are so dangerous that the Brazilian government has forbidden people from visiting the area. Only qualified researchers from or authorized by ICM Bio, which stands for the Chico Mendes Institute of Biodiversity Conservation, who know how to deal with snakes, can only enter under the condition that they have a doctor on their team. Yeah, this is easily one place I'm not heartbroken over never visiting. Number 3, Navajo County Courthouse in Arizona. Within the haunted tales of American courthouses, the old Navajo County Courthouse emerges as a sinister enigma, where the spirit of George Smiley is said to linger. Smiley's grim fate was sealed when he faced a death sentence for the killing of a railroad foreman, a crime that would shroud the courthouse in an unsettling legacy. Sheriff Frank Watron's macabre sense of humor cast an eerie pall over Smiley's impending execution. He dispatched gilded invitations for the hanging, a grotesque spectacle set for November 11th of 1899. But this twisted jest proved too much for the sensibilities of President McKinley and Governor Nathan Murphy, who swiftly reprimanded Watron, postponing the execution. In response, the sheriff issued another set of invitations, this time veiled in mournful language and adorned with a black border, signaling the ultimate demise of George Smiley on January 8th of 1900. But, the story doesn't end with Smiley's execution. According to a column in the Examiner, the old courthouse now houses the local historical society, but its halls are far from quiet. Eerie noises reverberate throughout the building, and objects move of their own accord, as if guided by unseen hands. It is here that the spectral roommates, including George Smiley and Sheriff Watron himself, are said to coexist in the realm of the beyond, their presence an enduring enigma. Far from the dusty trails of Navajo County, the Lincoln County Courthouse in Wiscasset, Maine, harbors its own spectral mysteries. In 2011, the courthouse was thrown into a state of disquiet when a motion-sensitive security camera captured eerie footage. County Commissioner Sheridan Bond, armed with a magnifying glass, scrutinized a still frame from the recording, believing he could see a spectral visage within the mysterious entity. Others, although uncertain about the existence of a face, agreed that the camera unequivocally captured something that we can't explain. Oh, the eerie occurrences doesn't end there. That's way too easy. Workers in the district attorney's office have reported sightings of a shadowy figure, manifesting in the late afternoon and early evening, casting a chilling pall over the courthouse. WCSH, the local station, embarked on a quest to, unveil the identity of the entity haunting the courthouse. However, their efforts yielded no definitive answers. The enigma persists, shrouded in the mists of time and history. The courthouse itself, with its origins dating back to 1824, has borne witness to a multitude of souls, some incarcerated, others executed, their stories etched into the very walls of the building. Number 2, Dacia County Courthouse in Arkansas. So, nestled in the heart of Arkansas City, this courthouse holds a spectral secret that has intrigued ghost hunters and courthouse workers alike. Here, the haunted haunting presence of a ghost known as Willard weaves its haunting tapestry throughout the building, defying the bounds of human logic. Local legend intertwines with the supernatural in a tale that centers around the courthouse's clock tower. An unsettling belief holds that the clock, perched high in its tower, has been cursed since the turn of the 20th century. The curse, it is said, was cast by a condemned man who met his grisly end on the courthouse lawn. The alleged arson of a string of hotels, a charge he vehemently denied. In a curious twist, County Judge Mark McElroy once made a campaign promise to mend the clock, as reported by, the local Gazette. However, the appointed clock technician tasked with repairing the timepiece dispelled the supernatural aura surrounding it. In his words, back in the old days, they probably did hang somebody out there on the front of the courthouse, or on the steps of the courthouse, or up in the tower of the courthouse, or whatever. I don't dispute that one bit, and the guy may have cursed them on the clock, but that's not the problem with the clock. It's just an old clock, and it needs tender loving care. All of them are that way. Alright, pal. The cryptic saga of the county courthouse embodies the confluence of folklore, history, and the supernatural. Willard's ghostly presence lingers, a reminder that even in the realm of the mundane, the boundaries between fact and legend can blur. Whether it's a cursed clock or the echoes of a tragic past, the courthouse stands as a testament to the enduring mysteries that shroud these haunted halls. Number 1. Mitchell Courthouse in Baltimore. In the corridors of the Clarence M. Mitchell Jr. Courthouse, nestled in Baltimore, Maryland, a spectral presence is said to roam an apparition of historical significance. Supreme Court Justice Roger B. Taney, infamous for the polarizing, Dred Scott decision, is believed to be the source of the unexplained phenomena that has unnerved those who tread upon this hallowed legal ground. Attorney Adam Sean Cohen's harrowing experience within these haunted walls serves as a testament to the otherworldly ambiance that permeates the courthouse. So during a court proceeding, Cohen was gripped by an inexplicable dread, likening the sensation to the frigid aura of a grocery store's frozen food section, where the coldness surrounds you while warmth beckons from within. Overwhelmed by this uncanny sensation, Cohen abruptly left the courtroom, a decision unimaginable in normal circumstances, as judges are typically treated with the utmost, respect. Circuit Judge Wanda Keyes Heard, presiding over the proceedings, showed a remarkable understanding of Cohen's abrupt exit. She herself believes that the courthouse is under the spectral watch of justice, that has passed, whose name I don't want to bugger up again. This belief is underscored by the presence of, the name etched upon the dome of the courthouse, a chilling reminder of the historical legacy that lingers. Heard, a descendant of those who endured the dark days of, bad things, humorously speculated that this guy might harbor some reservations about her role in the legal proceedings. However, a curious twist emerges when the courthouse's historian sheds light on the situation. While this ghostly presence is rumored to haunt the courthouse, historical records reveal a peculiar detail. The esteemed justice was never actually inside the courthouse during his lifetime. The courthouse itself was constructed in 900, long after this man's passing in 1864. Instead, it was a neighboring building, now demolished, where this presence resided, a location that has seemingly left quite the mark on the surrounding area. The spectral enigma of the courthouse serves as a chilling reminder that history has a peculiar way of transcending time and place. This justice's ghostly presence, though physically distant from the courthouse itself, continues to cast its ethereal shadow over the legal proceedings that unfold within its walls. It's a testament to the enduring influence of the past, one that defies the constraints of time and logic, leaving those who dare to enter these haunted halls with an unsettling sense of history's weight. Number 5. Otero County Courthouse, New Mexico. In the quiet corners of Alamogordo, New Mexico, I swear I looked that up, lies the Otero County Courthouse, a place where the line between the living and the spectral seems to blur. Those who labor within its walls have stories that chill the very marrow of one's bones. An entity from the, depths of the past, seemingly from the early 1900s, tends to emerge from the shadows. Witnesses have reported sightings of this specter, donned in a timeless suit that echoes an era long past. But it's not just apparitions that haunt this courthouse. It's the inexplicable phenomena that defies the laws of physics. Doors, once left ajar, abruptly close of their own volition, and objects, seemingly devoid of reason, plummet to the ground. Surveillance cameras bore witness to the eerie descent of a donation jar in a bowl on an x-ray machine, casting aside any doubts of, a natural explanation. It went from being, there to and there was nobody there. For the courthouse's, beleaguered employees, such occurrences are far from isolated incidents. They become the unsettling rhythm of daily life. When the donation jar defies gravity's grasp and crashes, echoing in the empty halls, it serves as a reminder that here, the ordinary has become the extraordinary. One tale recounted by a brave employee takes us into the restroom, where the mundane transitions into the uncanny. While standing alone, she felt an invisible hand tugging at her hair, a sensation that defies rational explanation. In that moment, the solitude of the restroom was shattered by an unseen presence, a ghostly interloper, if you will. Maintenance man Kenneth Schaefer, no stranger to the courthouse's peculiarities, speaks of doors that defy logic. They stand ajar, only to slam shut as if guided by an unseen hand. A stroll through the courtroom can send shivers down one's spine, as an unexplainable chill pierces through their very being, as if the air itself bears the weight of restless spirits. The history of the Otero County Courthouse is steeped in the echoes of the past. A modern structure completed in 1956, it stands upon the remnants of an earlier courthouse, constructed between 1901 and 1903. But it's the specter of a troubled soul from the 1960s or 70s that lingers, a man who chose to end his own life. His presence, or perhaps his torment, has seeped into the very foundations of that place. In the courthouse, the veil between the corporeal and the ethereal grows very, very thin. Number 4, Monroe County Courthouse in Arkansas. The Monroe County Courthouse, a seemingly innocuous edifice, conceals a sinister past that continues to haunt its halls to this day. In the year 1898, the courthouse bore witness to a gruesome racial killing that birthed the malevolent spirits that now reside within. Ghost Eyes, the, harbinger of the eerie, divulges stories of mournful cries emanating from its basement, serving as a chilling reminder of that fateful day. What transpired here was a harrowing sequence of events that shook the very foundation of this community. The roots of this macabre tale stretch back to the troubled household of John and Mabel Orr, where domestic discord festered like a dark omen. John, an actor by profession, was rumored to have subjected his wife Mabel to unspeakable cruelty, igniting violent clashes that punctuated their marriage. However, on that fateful August 5th, fate would deliver a gruesome twist. An unknown assailant shattered the, tranquility of their home, taking John's life in a horrifying manner through the kitchen window. Rumors swirled like malevolent spirits, suggesting Mabel's complicity in her husband's demise, intertwined with the ominous presence of voodoo. As the shadows deepened, Mabel's fate took a sinister turn. Mabel, ensnared by the tendrils of guilt and despair, chose to end her own life, poisoning herself in the bleak confines of the courthouse's basement jail. But the horrors were far from over. 4 servants of the Orr family, Mance Castle, Will Sanders, Rilla Weaver, Sanders' mother, and Dennis Rickard, found themselves incarcerated alongside the tormented spirit of Mabel. The abyss of human darkness consumed them as a meticulously organized mob descended upon the jail, snatching these souls from their mortal coil on August 9th. The maid, Susie Jacobs, also met her gruesome end at the hands of this merciless assembly. The Encyclopedia of Arkansas History and Culture recounts the grim spectacle of Mabel's lifeless form, put on grisly display within the courthouse, serving as a grim testament that she had not escaped her tormentors. The courthouse, once a symbol of justice, now stands as a malevolent sentinel, guarding the secrets of that gruesome summer.
Next, we travel to the Bay of Bengal and North Sentinel Island, home to the Sentinelese people, an indigenous tribe that has lived on the island for thousands of years. The island is so isolated that the Indian government has put in place a 3-mile buffer zone to prevent outsiders from actually disturbing the tribe. But what makes North Sentinel Island so terrifying is the tribe's reputation for violence towards outsiders. In 2006, 2 fishermen accidentally drifted onto the island and were unalived by the tribe. They drifted onto the shore while they were illegally fishing in the area, making a chilling incident due to the tribe's extreme isolation and violent resistance to any outside contact. The Sentinelese are known to attack anyone who approaches their island, making it a highly dangerous and off-limits zone. Now, the 2 fishermen were likely poaching in the waters around the island when their boat drifted onto the shore, and upon reaching the beach, the Sentinelese attacked the fishermen, unaliving them. Now, due to the danger, authorities did not attempt to retrieve the bodies of the fishermen at all, and the Sentinelese have, actively resisted any contact with the outside world, making their hostility towards intruders seem almost primal. More recently, though, in 2018, an American missionary named John Allen Chow attempted to make contact with the tribe and was unalived, sparking widespread outrage and debate about the ethics of, contacting isolated tribes. John Allen Chow was going through his father's study when he found something curious and alluring, an illustrated edition of Robinson Crusoe, the classic story of a sailor shipwrecked on a deserted island. Now, in November of 2018, Chow, who was 26 at the time and he was American adventure blogger and missionary, was unalived by the isolated tribe. He was attempting to convert to Christianity. When Chow's demise became international news, many Christians were keen to disclaim his actions. Chow's father actually believes the American missionary community is culpable, in his son's demise. He said John was an innocent person who lost his life, from an extreme vision of Christianity taken to its logical conclusion. He also told, news organizations that Chow had received 13 immunizations, though Survival International, an indigenous rights group, disputes that these would have prevented infection of the isolated Sentinelese people. Now, the Sentinelese, are considered one of the Earth's last uncontacted peoples. Their entire tribe is believed to number several dozen people, and in a brief message posted on Chow's Instagram account, his family pleaded for a more sympathetic understanding, of the person they called a beloved son, brother, uncle, and best friend, and someone who loved God, life, helping those in need, and had nothing but love for the Sentinelese people. On the night of November 14th, he and some fishermen, Christians who actually had agreed to help him set out in darkness for North Sentinel, carefully avoiding the Coast Guard vessels, they actually reached North Sentinel late at night and anchored nearby. The next morning on November 15th, he made his first approach. The fisherman refused to go any closer to the island, so he stripped to his underwear, thinking that would somehow make the Sentinelese more at ease, and he paddled the kayak towards the shore. He then saw a hut and some dugout canoes, and as he paddled up the beach, several Sentinelese people, faces painted yellow and speaking a language of high-pitched sounds, came rushing out at him. From his kayak, John was heard shouting, "My name is John, I love you, and Jesus loves you." But once he saw the islanders, stringing their bows, he panicked and threw some fish at them he had brought as a gift. Now, he turned away and paddled away, and he wrote that later in his diary, but obviously, you see, for me, that would have been more than enough to scare me off for good, but for John, no. He returned later that day and made another attempt, this time actually landing on the island. He laid out more gifts, then approached the hut, and then about a half a dozen Sentinelese emerged and began to shout. Instead of trying to leave, John did the unthinkable and walked closer to try and hear what they were saying. He tried to parrot their words back to them, which was actually met with some laughter, which made him think that they were tolerating his presence, but they weren't. Then, a boy actually fired an arrow at him, but believe it or not, the arrow actually struck his waterproof Bible, where he was holding it right to his chest. Now, the tribe had already taken his kayak, so he was actually forced to swim, almost a mile back to the fishing boat. But later that night, he wrote in his diary of just how scared he was. And so, he said, "You guys might think I'm crazy and all this, but I think it's worth it to declare Jesus to these people." He decided at that moment that he would make another attempt without the fishing vessel nearby. He thought, maybe appearing alone might make the tribe more comfortable, but also acknowledging that if the approach went badly, it would spare the fishermen from having to bear witness to his fatality. So please let it be known that John made it clear he didn't want to be unalived and thought that he would be more useful alive, but accepted the possibility. I don't know about you guys, but if my life was spared not once but twice, with the second time literally being saved by my Bible in my hands, I would have taken that as a very clear sign that God would not need to save me again, because that would have been enough for me to leave and never look back. But of course, for John, with his unwavering faith and optimism, he went out one more time, and that was the straw, that broke the camel's back. He never came back. The fishermen said that when they came back the following day, they saw an unalive person being buried at the shore with, the silhouette and the body and the clothing and circumstances. It obviously appeared to be the body of John. So tragic. But with all that to be said, I think you can understand why it's forbidden to go there. Now, to leave you with an honorable mention, let's travel to Italy and Poveglia Island, a small island located in the Venetian Lagoon. Now, this island has a dark history, having been used as a quarantine station for plague victims in the 18th century. Thousands of people perished on the island, and their bodies were burned in mass graves. But what makes the island so terrifying is the reports of paranormal activity that have been documented over the years. Visitors have reported seeing ghostly, apparitions, hearing strange noises, even experiencing physical attacks by unforeseen forces. Now, some paranormal believers claim the island is the most haunted place in the world, so it is absolutely forbidden to visit for obvious reasons, of course.